Let's see how Mario exposed the movie industry.
The way we want, it is working the way they want. You see, the review process may be broken, but the powerful people who broke it wanted to stay that way.
Okay.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to
We're going full conspiracy theory? Is this the film theory where Matt goes full conspiracy theory off the deep end? I hope so. That'd be great.
Hides power-ups inside of bricks. Go ahead, hit that one and see what comes out. Ooh, you got
Whoa!
that one gives
No way, a subscribe button?
you a big
Matt, I
brain.
can't click it. Listen, Matt, I'm trying to click it. It's not doing anything right now.
Well, you know what they say, knowledge is power ups. So at this point, do I even need to ask if you've seen the Mario movie? It's been shaking loose so much coin that you'd think you were suddenly in Wario land. This thing is a mega mushroom-sized hit at the global box office, sitting at nearly
What did you guys think of the Mario movie? Did you like it? I thought it was a lot of fun, but it was definitely, you could tell there was some love put into it. I didn't really mind the actors, apart from the Cranky Kong voice actor was not good. Did not like that at all. It was pretty generic. It would have been nice if it had like a story to it instead of just Bowser bad, go beat Bowser. But Jack Black brought so much life to this entire movie. I loved him. Absolutely fantastic. It's a very controversial take to say that Jack Black made the Mario movie. I also really like Peach in this. Peach was awesome as well. But the story was, we'll say, lackluster.
$1 billion in worldwide gross as I write this with no signs of slowing down. This thing has put up such huge numbers that industry experts are even bumping up their projections for the entire year of cinema earnings just because of this one film.
Damn, it's making so much money. I mean, of course it's gonna make a ton of money. That's just how it is. Also, I know people say that kids' movies, oh, it's not gonna have story because it's a kids' movie. That's nonsense. There are so many kids' movies out there that have really good, meaningful, heartfelt stories. This one didn't. I know people are mad about the soundtrack too, which is totally valid. They used way too many licensed songs. They had this really good song for the Donkey Kong Mario Kart driving part that would have been perfect, that they replaced with Take On Me for some reason. I mean, Take On Me is a good song, but it just didn't fit in that area.
It's calling out the fact that this one movie has such a shocking overperformance, which, can we just be real here? Mario is more recognizable to children than Mickey Mouse. People are surprised that a feature film from the marketing masterminds behind the Minions is doing well. Whoa, color me shocked, loyal theorists. Who could have seen this one coming?
It boggles my mind every day that people like the Minions, like genuinely like the Minions. You go on Facebook and they're making unironic Minions posts. Like 45-year-old women are talking about Deborah, how they went to get their nails done and have a Minions getting their nails done, nice pretty pink nails, as like a meme. I don't understand it. It's like an entirely different plane of existence over there.
I'm like a surprised Pikachu up in here. But something that was a legitimate surprise to me and to the internet at large was the response from movie critics, especially when compared to how different it was from all the normal people walking out of it. As of the writing of this script, just 59% of critics on Rotten Tomatoes scored this one positively, planting it in the rotten category. And I just gotta say, that does not track
The rotten
with movie that I
category?
saw. Was the Mario movie perfect by any means? No, clearly not. I was pretty upfront in my last theory, acknowledging the weak pacing, the poor character motivation, and the fact that the soundtrack is just like the director forgot to turn off his Spotify playlist. But just listen to some of these reviews. Quote, the whole package is a deranged mishmash, an assault on the senses with a subpar animation style. The Super Mario Brothers movie is the
What? Did they watch the same movie I did?
Absolute worst.
What? That's actual quotes? Did they see the same movie I did? Okay, I understand from a movie-going perspective, if you're a critic when it comes to kids' movies, it's really hard to critique that kind of thing because you need to critique it under the same lens that you critique adult movies with, but it was not that bad. You have to be able to find the goodness in it. They're not going to rate it like 9 out of 10, surely. They're not going to rate it 95. They're not going to rate it 10 out of 10 because there are some glaring issues with the story and like they mentioned in the pacing. It was still fun. It's still enjoyable, and if you think about the target audience that they're aiming at as well, maybe you can adjust your review scores based on who is gonna be seeing the movie, if you have a little bit of awareness there, but man, it was not that bad.
Okay, the absolute worst.
Are you sure about that?
Meanwhile, the audience reception sits comfortably at 96% positive, much closer.
That's maybe a little too high, I would say. 96, putting it up there with like the greatest movies all time. You got the Shawshank Redemption, you got Saving Private Ryan, and then you got the Super Mario Brothers movie, baby. That's right.
Seems to be the consensus from all us lowly normies and other armchair.
96 is high. That's really high.
What the movie critics watched, but it certainly wasn't this film. This is not by any means a bad movie.
I am kind of surprised now to see these critic scores because I'm like, how could you hate on this movie?
Honestly, I'm usually one to agree with the left side of the Rotten Tomatoes score, but the critics are kind of going a little too hard on this one.
And it's that division that really interests me. With a 59%.
Did Mario jump on their mothers or something? Why are the critics so mad at Mario?
Critic score and a 96% audience rating. That means that the Mario movie has a gigantic 37-point difference. Why? And why does it feel like this sort of gap between critic and audience has been increasing over the years? Over the past decade, there are a ton of movies that were hits with the audience that just wound up as complete whiffs to critics. Some notable examples here: Nintendo's console war rival Sony has a lot of trouble in this category. Venom has a 30% with critics, but an 80% from audiences.
Wow, that is a huge difference. I mean, I didn't see Venom. I saw the sequel. I thought it was like, all right, it's fine, I guess. But man, 30% with critics and then 80%? My God.
50-point swing. Uncharted sits at 41% with critics and 90%.
Well, all right, no. Hold on, okay. Maybe the audiences don't know what they're talking about. Uncharted was so mid. I did not like that. It was just Famous Person, the movie. I went in to see Uncharted and then I had forgotten that I had seen it the next day. It's such a forgettable movie. I think I agree with the critics here. I genuinely did not have fun with this one.
90% audience approval, a massive 49-point difference. The Greatest Showman, 29% divide. Netflix originals like The Gray Man, Red Notice, and Bright are 44, 56, and 57-point swings respectively. In every single one of these cases, fewer than half the critics recommend the movie, but more than 80% of the audience does. And it works both ways too. There are plenty of movies that critics loved, but audiences didn't. The Last Jedi, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Us, Hail Caesar, Uncut Gems. How does this keep—
Whoa, wait, people didn't like Uncut Gems? Oh, I really liked Uncut Gems. I thought it was wacky, it was weird, it made me feel like super uncomfortable all the time. It genuinely made me feel things. If there's a movie that makes me feel strongly of a certain emotion, I generally think it's good unless the emotion is, I hate this movie. As long as it's not, I hate this movie, and it makes me feel something, I'm like, okay, this is good, right? The Last Jedi? What did people like? Dude, what are the critics talking about, man? Did they just see pretty funny Star Wars light and then go, ooh, Star Wars? Oh, you know what? It's Disney. I'm not one to make conspiracy theories about movie critics getting paid off or anything like that, but it just seems interesting to me that Disney was the one that got all the good reviews. I just think I mean, look at this. Disney, Wreck-It Ralph versus the internet. 2 Disney movies that got good reviews. I'm not gonna make any statements one way or the other. I just think it's interesting to see that.
How does this keep happening? Why does this keep happening? And it's not like critics and audiences don't agree most of the time. Top Gun Maverick, Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man No Way Home, John Wick Chapter 4, all recent examples.
Yes, all of those, awesome. Okay, I'm gonna organize this in the best one to the worst one. So, let's see, Top Gun Maverick, probably the best out of these, and then John Wick, and then Endgame, and then Spider-Man. Oh my God, I love all these movies. They're so good.
That have critics and audience scores in the 90s. Similarly, high scores can also be found with classics like Lord of the Rings, Gladiator, The Matrix.
Banger.
So is there any
Gladiator, one of the best movies of all time?
Find across the films that have this extreme division between critic and audience? Loyal theorists, this has been a subject that's been on my mind for literal years. And the fact that it's happened again with something as innocuous as the Mario movie has finally gotten me to look into it. After all, it kind of feels like critics and audiences watch—
Yeah, I am actually interested in it. Why is there such a big divide between the two opinions? How can there be such a divide? I guess when it comes to audiences, if you have a massive fan base that like this specific thing, then they're likely to rate it higher, even if it just appeals to them specifically, whereas critics are modeling after what would the normal person enjoy, maybe, or what is a more definitive, better experience. Whereas if you're already a fan of a series, even if it's not the greatest experience, you're gonna see it's good because it gave good fan service to that one character I think is very poggers. Maybe it's something to do with that.
What's going on? Well, after looking into the history of reviews, I found evidence to suggest that there are some pretty powerful players in this game banking on the fact that there's a war between audience and critic. Munch down those mushrooms, loyal theorists. We're entering the warp pipe. First, let's set up the parameters of what we're actually talking about here. Rotten Tomatoes actually has very specific rules and formulas for what makes a piece of media good or bad in their eyes.
Okay, I never knew this.
And audience
I don't know anything about this.
A good review is anything with 3.5 stars or higher. If fewer than 60% of those reviews are good, a film is considered rotten. 60% or higher gets you a fresh rating. So with that in mind, let's talk about our two groups.
There's only 2 ratings?
Exactly what it sounds like. Anyone who wants to voice their opinion about the film. That means it's a big group with a lot of different types of people in it. Shocking, I know. Meanwhile, there's some pretty strict criteria involved with Rotten Tomatoes approving critics for their site. Basically, it boils down to frequent quality criticism across written—
What is quality criticism though? Is it writing a lot of words? Is it writing many paragraphs? You could just make ChatGPT make some reviews for you and then get qualified as a quality critic
video
at that
or
point.
audio reviews. So the regular person hopping onto Twitter or TikTok to share their hot takes as the credits roll ain't getting added to that side of the tomato meter. And that matters. According to career analysis website Zippia, film criticism in the United States has a pretty clear demographic. More than 80% are men, more than 67% are white, 90% of them completed some sort of college degree, they have a median age of 40 to 44. A lot of them also—
Okay, so as long as you make your film to appeal to 44-year-old, middle-aged, college degree-earning white men, then you're golden. You get some good review scores.
cities, especially ones heavily involved in filmmaking like Los Angeles and New York. Obviously, these traits don't define
It's the
a
goddamn
person.
liberals.
Experiences are going to be far more important to a human being than what boxes they check for statistics. But this is useful information setting a tone for the majority of the reviews that are affecting the score. Rotten Tomatoes must have agreed, since in 2018 they tried to open up their roster of critics to a greater variety of sources, but were ultimately met with a very limited degree of success. So with all—
I actually think that's super important because when it comes to a wide, diverse audience of people that's going to see a movie, you need a wide, diverse group of people that are doing the reviews as well. Because you can't just say, oh, a critic will just say if something is good or not, regardless of what their skin color or gender is, because people from different walks of life have different perspectives on things, and that also affects their taste in media. So it's important to have different perspectives on that as well.
With this in mind, it starts to become clear why there's a division here. Think about the people in the audience review section. They're anyone from a single NASA-employed rocket scientist with 5 kids to a C-average high school student wanting to gentle minion with the boys, and all of those voices are treated equally. Meanwhile, I think everyone can come up with a rough idea of the stereotypical critic. Ratatouille hit this one on the head in the food world.
I don't like food, I love it. If I don't love it, I don't swallow.
But
If he doesn't like it, he doesn't swallow. Keep that in
why
mind.
did that impact the split we see here between those critics and audiences on the Mario movie? Well, I suspect that a lot of it comes down to expectation. When you have a specialized group of people that are so similar, like critics, they're likely going to have specific expectations about what they want out of something. And in the case of the Mario movie, and other divisive films like it, seems like the reviews kinda miss the point. The Mario movie is a kids movie aimed unapologetically at a kids audience.
That's what I said.
Nintendo want kids to be the people who want to see this film most. It wants—
That's why I said, like I mentioned before, you gotta keep in mind who are the people that are actually gonna be watching these movies. Not every movie is aimed at 44-year-old white men, but lots of people other than that are going to be seeing it. So if you're a reviewer, you have to keep in mind that not just your own perspective, your own values, and your own tastes are going to be the ones that matter here.
To be the first movie that you saw in theaters for an entire generation of kids, while also being good enough for the adults that take them. It is not trying to be a masterpiece, it is trying to introduce kindergartners to the idea of movies. And in that role, it works great. But that's also not what a lot of other modern animated films are trying to do. Look at the Lego movie, Puss in Boots.
Dude, I just watched Puss in Boots like a couple of days ago. That movie slaps. That movie's so goddamn good. Oh my, I loved it.
Spider-Verse. Those are animated films too, to be sure, but they're action comedies with grown-up ideas that have the coat of kids movie paint slapped on top. Stuff that would likely appeal more to that college-educated, middle-aged critic. But the Mario movie? It's not pretending to be a kids movie, it is a kids movie. Mario's biggest problem as a character is pretty basic hero's journey stuff, learning that he needs to believe in himself and his abilities. Oh, he also needs to eat his vegetables like Ma said so he can grow big and strong. Mushrooms aren't vegetables, obviously, but you get the idea. The long and short of it is that Mario's a lot closer to something like the Paw Patrol movie, but it seems like critics went in expecting it to be Pixar levels of story. Or at least that was my initial hypothesis. But when I looked for evidence to confirm that suspicion, it didn't quite pan out. Because when you look at other kids' fodder, like Despicable Me, Sing, Kung Fu Panda, the Paw Patrol movie like I just called out, all of their scores match critic to audience.
Really? I've seen Kung Fu Panda. I did like Kung Fu Panda. I just can't get down with the Minions, man. I have to understand that there are some people out there that like Minions and that is okay. I will not minion shame anyone. It's fine. They think the little yellow Tic Tacs are cool. Not me though, but it's okay.
Like Minions. Audiences and critics agree it was trash, but they still are gonna show it to the kids anyway. So what was it about the Mario movie specifically that caused this divide? Well, to see if I could actually spot any trends here, I pulled a bunch of movies that had a 20 percentage point or more difference in either direction. Those where the audience scores were higher included the Mario movie, obviously, that's why we're here. Also the ones that I mentioned at the top, Venom, Uncharted, Greatest Showman, Gray Man, Red Notice, Bright, but also a lot of things that I haven't mentioned yet. Stuff like most Fast and Furious movies, Hillbilly Elegy,
Oh, okay. Well, I can answer. Okay, this makes a little bit more sense now. If it's the Fast and Furious movies, there are people that just love Fast and Furious movies. They are not great movies. Let's be honest. I saw the newest Fast and Furious movie, and I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But people know that. That's why they go to see the Fast and Furious movie. When a critic goes in, they sit down, they're like, okay, let's take notes here on the story, the set design. We'll make sure that everything makes sense here. The continuity is continuous, and etc., etc. But a person that goes in to see a Fast and Furious movie is going to sit down like, I'm going to see the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And they love it because it is fun to watch. It will make you laugh because it's just absolutely ridiculous. So audiences are going to rate it higher because they know what they're getting into. But critics have to see things through, I guess, the same lens. They have to guide it through the same review process that they would review other movies, which means you're going to rate it lower because it's not really amazing, but it's amazing for the people that really like Fast and Furious movies.
Boondock Saints, Hotel Transylvania, the live-action Lion King remake, Maleficent 1 and 2, Ghostbusters Afterlife, the live-action Cats, data didn't specify if it was the one with or without the buttholes, and basically every Transformers and Pirates of the Caribbean movie ever.
Oh, the same thing for Pirates of the Caribbean and Transformers. Like, they're not that great, but if you've seen one of the Transformers movie, you're like, yeah, that was kind of cool. I saw a big robot punch another big robot in the face, and it made a really big it was like awesome, so I'm gonna go see the next one. Then they're gonna rate it higher because they like the big robot going, or the Pirates of the Caribbean. They just really want to see Johnny Depp do the Johnny Depp voice where he's there's no rum left. Why is there no rum left?
Oh, and I can't forget Morbius 2: Return to Morbin Time.
All right, dude, come on.
End of the spectrum, the movies that critics liked that audiences didn't included Ralph Breaks the Internet, Uncut Gems, Turning Red, The Last Jedi, Us, and Hail Caesar. Notice any trends here? Because I certainly do. Let's pull them out by group because I can actually see a handful of things all at work here. First, very clearly the critics don't appreciate mindless action. That's why all the Pirates, Transformers, and Fast and Furious films are in these buckets. The Netflix action movies, even comic book movies like Venom. They're not very deep, they're largely formulaic, but they're also fun. They do action,
they're fun, exactly.
Many of them do the action well. And sometimes as an audience, you just want to turn your brain off and let a movie wash over you. You want to be entertained.
He says that they don't want mindless action, but John Wick is literally just mindless action. There's like very paper thin story to go along with John Wick. As a cool world, but I think John says like 250 words or less in that movie, and the rest of it is just really cool John Wick stunts where he does John Wick things. He's running around shooting people like John Wick, and that's cool. And everyone agrees that that is really cool, which is why it gets rated really highly. So I guess they do kind of like mindless action sometimes when it's really, really, really good mindless action.
Critics appear to be the exact opposite. They're bringing notepads. They're scouring every frame. Their brain is running overtime because it's in work mode. They just can't let a movie wash over them and enjoy it for what it is. They're trying to find something constructive to say about every single movie that they watch
Oh man, I understand exactly how that feels as well when it comes to making videos and things like that. It's very similar where you're sitting down and you want to just enjoy something because something has been presented to you as a thing that you enjoy, but you're like, but I'm the critic, so I have to critique it. I have to make sure this is good. I have to make sure that this is bad. I have to make sure that I'm taking notes. Was that good? Was this piece of dialogue good? I should take notes on that too. Oh man. That must suck to be a movie critic.
Every single week. And when all the movie does is just tick a bunch of boxes instead of offering something different, well, that's gonna lose points for the critic who watched a similar movie last week, and the week before that, and the week before that. Treating movies as just an amusement park ride is just not as effective for the critic. Secondly, looking at this list, critics don't seem to understand the humor and sensibilities of the internet. Cats, Morbius, I mean, we all know why you're here. You are the so bad it's fun to watch crowd. I saw Cats in a rowdy Friday night theater with a group of kids in front of me who kept meowing at the screen, and let me tell ya, it was the best cinema experience of my life.
No, dude, anything with James Corden in it is immediately getting a 1 out of 10 from me. And that's a generous 1 out of 10. You don't deserve that one.
Come to this place for magic.
Yep, you're right, Nicole Kidman. I do come for the magic. The magic of the Taylor Swift fangirl sitting next to me during that Cats showing, shouting at the screen 40 minutes in, "Where's Taylor?" It was awesome. The entire audience erupted in laughter. But to a critic, they're not appreciating movies ironically. They're not dressing up like a gentle minion like the rest of us. They're not waiting for Jared Leto to morb all over that screen. And as a result, those movies get lower scores. On the flip side of that though, look no further than Ralph Breaks the Internet. A movie that got higher critical scores than audience scores because despite trying its best to riff off the humor and sensibilities of online meme content, it did it in the most normie way possible.
Oh no. Oh, dude.
Online
No, I hate these boardroom made memes. It's so nasty. Every time. When you're making a movie, what are you putting memes into a movie for? You know that memes die after like 2 weeks of being popular. It'd be like a movie coming out now that has a Ugandan Knuckles meme. I hate this safe boardroom-esque thing. It defeats the entire point of internet memes. Internet memes are supposed to be organic, they're created from grassroots. They just come out of nowhere, you chuckle for a little bit, everyone collectively gets the joke, and then it dies. That's the point. Memes are supposed to die quickly, and then you move on to the next joke, because we're all content brains and we're all brain broken, and we can't keep our attention on something for more than a day at this point, so as soon as something comes up and it dies away, it's gone. We move on to the next thing. It's like swiping on TikTok. If you put it into a movie, especially one that is approved by a group of moldy old men in suits and focus groups, then it just takes all the soul out of it completely.
communities can see through that thin attempt to cater to them, which results in lower overall scores. Lastly, and this is perhaps the biggest disagreement between the two camps, critics don't respond to nostalgia and familiarity, while audiences clearly eat it up. Ghostbusters Afterlife, it's fun, it's enjoyable, but it's also not a 94% positive movie, but audiences love the fact that it felt just new enough. You got old favorites, you got recreations of classic moments, but with new enough faces and plot lines.
Is that Finn Wolfhard?
Maleficent 2, movies that began as a familiar and beloved fairy tale, except told with a new twist. It's safe, it's nostalgic, but also just a little bit new. That Lion King remake, despite its quality, it's the movie equivalent of a one-way trip to Nostalgia Town.
I hate this, dude. Disney needs to stop doing this. I know it's like the easiest money vacuum of all time, but these live action remakes of all the animated movies makes me sick. I hate seeing them.
Be a Dead Men Tell No Tales. It's not great, but audiences were clearly happy to revisit a fictional world that they hadn't seen in a while. And now, just take a look at the flip side. What do critics like that audiences don't? Things that feel too new, do things too differently, are a bit too far of a departure, or that may be good, unique ideas that maybe don't fully come together in the end. To the critic who sees a movie at least once a week, they're placing premiums on things that are interesting. The Last Jedi is a perfect example of this, where audience reviews on Rotten Tomatoes focus on it not feeling like Star Wars, or the characters not behaving in ways that they would expect.
Yeah, critics don't care about that.
Shaking things up, trying to do new things, taking the franchise in new directions.
Taking the franchise in new directions and doing new things isn't always a good thing, though. I'm always a person that appreciates when you try and do something new, but if it sucks, it sucks.
Turning Red is another one that falls into this.
And The Last Jedi
it's a Pixar
sucks.
movie that most parents would take their kids to thinking it's gonna be a good time killer for the family. But then you have scenes about periods and pads, and suddenly the room with your kids turns a bit awkward.
I have ibuprofen, vitamin B, a hot water bottle, and pads. You are a woman now, and your body is starting to change.
To a critic,
Okay, I'm just gonna take on deck that movie is not made for me. 26-year-old man. And I'm just gonna move on. That's fine,
that's
whatever.
brave and necessary storytelling about topics that don't get screen time. To the parent who is looking to kill some hours with their kid, that's an uncomfortable conversation on the way home from the movies. I'm not saying it's good, I'm not saying it's bad, I'm saying it's the truth and it's gonna affect your score. Now take all of that information and look at the Mario movie. It is all of these things rolled up into one. It's mostly pretty colors and fun action with a pretty thin plot. It caters to online communities and gaming scenes that critics don't typically engage with, and it's speedrunning its way through tons of Easter eggs and nostalgia bait. This movie is basically everything that critics don't like, all in one convenient package. So I think that's a pretty good explanation for what's going on with this divide between audiences and critics as it relates to movies like Mario, but I'm still not entirely satisfied with the answer. Like, sure, maybe that's how it's happening, but why is it happening? And more importantly, why
I still think they were way too harsh on the Mario movie. Like, I know it's full of references, the plot barely existent, but man, those quotes that we saw earlier, it's Illumination at the worst. It's a little harsh. Maybe they're doing it for clicks. Oh, people love a little bit of hate. People love it when you get a little bit angry. When you say something inflammatory, ooh, they love it. They'll click all over that. They think it's great.
Keep happening. This disparity between critics and audiences is a big
little
issue,
drama
and it
just for
happens
fun.
often enough that it's been on people's radars for at least a decade now. You would think at this point we would have figured some way to sort this out. I mean, shouldn't we all be on the same side here? Audiences ideally get valuable information about movies before spending time and money on them, and critics need someone to be reading or watching their reviews for their jobs to exist. So why would critics versus audiences even be a thing unless someone was benefiting from sustaining this conflict? Stick with me here. This is
Ad revenue, baby.
The whole idea of review aggregators like Rotten Tomatoes can trace their way back to basically a single place, a show called At the Movies, presented by a pair of critics named Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert. Their whole shtick was that in lieu of scores, they'd both issue movies a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Not only was it an entertaining show presented by a pair of knowledgeable guys talking about their capital O movie opinions, but over the years, audiences got to know Siskel and Ebert's personal tastes to the point that they could even tell from a glance what sort of movie they were getting into depending on the direction the thumbs pointed. This was great for consumers, allowing them to get a clear and concise way of getting the broad strokes on a film's quality. But for the studios, it was even better. The marketing value of this cannot be overstated. If a movie managed to get these two to agree that it was good, that was huge. Overall, this system was a win-win for everyone during a time when information didn't travel at the speed of the internet. And it kind of sounds like what Rotten Tomatoes is supposed to be in the modern day, right? Let me just see how good or bad.
So they're gonna pay off the reviewers. I actually don't think that any reviewers are paid off, at least not in the traditional sense. They may get wined and dined a little bit, but I think if you get exposed for being a paid off reviewer, it's over. It's GG's. It's too risky to take that, right?
With how Rotten Tomatoes handles things. Back when it was just two guys on TV, it was easy to keep up with their opinions and figure out how they thought. But now there are thousands of critics with followings across a lot of different platforms. And in scaling up so much, adding so many people to the process, literally hundreds of critics in most cases, well, you start to lose the nuance of the individual opinion. No longer do you think, oh, Roger Ebert liked this thing? I like the other things he recommended, so I'm gonna like this one too. Now,
that makes a good point. That's actually a really good point. I don't know any movie reviewers by name. I don't know a single one. I know some YouTubers that I go to when I want to hear their opinions on a movie. Like when I want to hear about Moist Critical's opinion, I'll watch his Moist Meter on something, or Angry Joe. I don't know any actual traditional reviewers' names at all. I know a number that gets assigned to a movie because a collection of people gave it that number, but I don't know a single one of them. I only know YouTubers. I think personality-based reviewing is way, way, way more important. So what these reviewers, I guess, should be doing is trying to increase their own personal brands. But if you're a part of a big website, that's kind of hard to do.
All the individual thoughts are basically stripped out of the process, flattened down and combined with everyone else's until all you see is a number. Sometimes it's gonna be a big number with a tomato next to it, sometimes it's a small number with a green little slime next to it. Throw in audience reviews, now you got yourself two numbers. And would you look at that? If they're both big, you have the new version of 2 thumbs up. Everyone loves the film, and you as a moviegoer should go see it immediately. And if they don't line up, well, now you've got yourself some conflict. And the suits at all the ad agencies have really been able to twist this one to their advantage. Marketing loves a good
it is good marketing, isn't it? If critics disagree with the audience, then that's great marketing because there's a divide, there's drama, there's fighting going on, there's disagreements.
Xbox versus PlayStation. But what they love even more is how these conflicts get consumers to self-sort into neat and tidy boxes so they're even easier to market to. It's been happening forever. So if you end up with a film that critics aren't feeling but audiences are, the studio can then turn around and say, the critics don't like our movie, but so what? Our movie is for you, the average Joe. And
oh, dude, it sounds like a politician. I hate this so much.
An us versus them narrative. You know how ads will sometimes just pull quotes from all sorts of different...
Do you think that a movie studio would pay to give their movie a bad review so that they could turn around and be like, yeah, the hoity-toity critics in the high castle sipping their French tea doesn't like it, but we're down with the gritty, with the working man. We made it for you. Those high-class liberals up there, they're not the ones that like it, but we didn't make it for them. We made it for you instead.
Reviews.
Critics agree. The Avengers is a must-see movie event for everyone.
It's gonna be fun.
Well, when Batman v Superman bombed with critics and at the box office, the film's official account started tweeting out what looked to be press quotes attributed to random Twitter users with the text, "See it for yourself." And wouldn't you know it, with the Mario movie...
That's so funny. You could grab Dingle Dongle 225 off of Twitter and say, Dingle Dongle 225 agrees. Our movie will suck your dick off.
The exact same thing. They're leaning in hard on the audience score, tweeting a web spot saying just, the audience has spoken. And it's getting the intended effect. Literally, the #1 reply to this thing is, exactly, we don't care about critics' opinions. Either way, pretty much
that's 54 likes though, to be fair.
Invested in this thing comes out a winner. Nintendo and Universal have a movie that fans start defending in a surprisingly long-legged discourse. Critics and content creators can write articles and make videos like this one, actually, discussing why critics are or aren't wrong. And Rotten Tomatoes gets clicks and traffic as people go to look up the scores, defend their opinions on the title, review it themselves, and the whole website brand becomes part of the conversation, all without getting dragged through the mud. Because they're the middleman.
True.
Or are they really?
They get tasty ad revenue from that as well.
If you really want to start getting into the conspiracy theory of it all, do you know who actually owns Rotten Tomatoes? Like,
oh no, no I don't.
runs the website. It's Fandango
tell me.
Media. Media, a movie
Is that the Illuminati?
And that makes a lot of sense. You go to see how a film's being reviewed, and if it catches your fancy, hey, here's a link to buy the ticket right there at the bottom of the Rotten Tomatoes page.
Ooh,
Not a big
sneaky.
deal, right? But if you go one step further up that corporate ladder, Fandango Media is jointly owned by Warner Brothers Discovery and NBC Universal, who between them...
Oh, interesting.
Yes. I'm not saying anything, but isn't it interesting that one of those
interesting.
companies just released an animated kids film based on a popular video game that has wildly different reception from critics and audiences, thereby driving this very conversation? And that the Mario movie is literally just 1 point on the rotten side for the critics. Not so bad that it looks terrible, but just enough to fuel discourse in the community. Episodes like this. Like I said, that's taking it to an extreme, but I'm just putting
That's
that
a
little
funny
nugget of
theory.
information out there for consideration.
Basically, the thing that we've learned from here is to not pay attention to movie reviewers anymore. Instead, just watch YouTubers instead. Just watch more YouTube. Watch more of my YouTube channel. And if you want me to react to a video, then you can suggest it in my Discord server. It's in the description.